Hey guys, if you haven't figured it out, this is what we call Grandpa Truck, and we blew it up on race week and spun a bearing again since then. So we're going to pull the 6.2 out of it, and we're working on building a 5.3 over there together to slap back in. So enjoy, watch us struggle and regret some of our decisions of supercharging a daily. Actually, no, we'll never regret that decision, but
you can see the radiator had to come out first. Now we're going to take the supercharger off and start removing the exhaust, separate the transmission, and then yank the motor out. Should be fun. All right, so we're gonna call it quits for now. We have the radiator and all the front of the engine apart. Next, we gotta pull the exhaust off, take the converter bolts out, take the starter off, disconnect the transmission, and then yank her out. But we can go ahead and take a look at what we're building next door. Almost died. So instead of putting another 6.2 in, we are building a 5.3. Why? 1, cheaper. 2, we had one laying around. So Alex is working on assembling the pistons. We went with GPI pistons and rods, and it's looking pretty good so far. All right, why don't you tell us about these GPI pistons and rods? What's so special about them? What's different than the ones that we've used before?
Well, there's nothing really special about them. They're just a forged piston. However, if anybody knows anything about Gen 5 stuff, they have glass pistons and rods, and a lot of that has to do with ring gap. But this will be the 3rd time we've had the motor out of this truck, and we've owned it for 10 months. So
Got to be a record.
I'm over it. So this motor is bulletproof. It should be good for 1,000 horsepower when it's all said and done. We got head studs, we got main studs. You can see them here. This engine block only had about 22,000 miles on it, and it held 700 horsepower with the stock pistons in it in my regular cab for 2 years. So now with these pistons and rods, with the blower and the cam, got GPI cam as well, should be pretty bulletproof for what, I mean, we're shooting for 10, 12 pounds boost and maybe 600 horsepower to the tires. But first time I've ever had these spiral locks. I actually had to watch a video on how to put them in. Pretty interesting. You they show up in a package like this, just flat. That confused the hell out of me, so that's why I had to watch a video. YouTube mechanic over here. You like pull them apart like that, and then you just kind of walk them into the deal. No joke, that's probably the fastest one I've done, just so you could see it.
Aren't we
And
honored?
these are double spiral locks, so you put 2 in. I don't see in there, I'm messing up. You just walk them in like a spring. Pretty slick. If anybody's ever put pistons and rods together and they use the other style of wrist pin clip, you usually end up losing a few across the shop because they come out at the speed of Mach Jesus. But I'm on my last 2. I've already gapped the rings. They're gapped at 20 to 24 thou, both top and bottom. These have a dot in the piston that indicate the front of the engine. So you put it that, and you look at the rod, and it's got a chamfer on one side. The chamfer always goes towards the journal of the crank. So you take one of these. A little bit of this royal purple assembly lube. Thanks, Torres. I'd never buy this shit, but man, it's good stuff. Way too fancy for my liking. Never put anything in dry. Always lube it up vigorously with 2 hands.
Sir, you only used 1.
No, I definitely used 2. You can watch the video after this.
Gotcha. We'll have to play it back.
Later. And then because I don't want to cut my fingers up with all this lube all over my fingers, I use this little screwdriver to avoid that because these little spiral locks are kind of sharp. Let me take another one.
So these ones take 2 spiral locks per side.
So you get 4 spiral locks per piston and rod. And these are the drop-in style, so they don't require a balance on the stock crank, which is pretty okay, because I just heard yesterday from my machine shop that they're going to be gone for a week. So out of our 5 cars, the only one that runs is my pile of shit Suburban and Holly's SS. Weirdly enough, that one's the most reliable vehicle we have right now. But if you're in the Midwest like us, we don't really want to drive that car when it's 20 degrees out and icy. So I'm trying really hard to get this back together so we can not have to drive that. But if we have to, we have to. It is what it is.
Good thing it's supposed to be 50-something next week.
For one day.
Hey, it counts.
But we're just plugging away at it. It's the last one. I've already got the rings gapped, and honestly, I'm a little bummed because I ordered all my stuff from GPI, and I've got the whole pile of stuff here to put the engine together. Got the cam, got the ARP head studs. I obviously have the ARP main studs already installed in the block, but when I opened the ARP main studs, I was gonna torque the crank in the block. There's a reason it's not in the block now, and that is they sent me the wrong nuts. And when I went to put the nut on, it just went thunk. I was like, those aren't right. It turns out there's a block over there in the corner with some ARP head studs sticking out of it. Turns out they sent me some LS head studs nuts. And so big shout out to ARP there. I just called them and they were like, yeah, that's crazy. Asked me the weight on the box, confirmed that the weight on the box wasn't correct. So he's just shipping me out 20 nuts. So now the only reason I won't be able to put this completely together this weekend is because I don't have the nuts for my main studs yet. Super big bummer. But we do need to get the 6.2 out of the truck so I can steal all the parts that I need, like the valve springs, the push rods, and a lot of the stuff out of that motor to put this motor together. So,
But people make mistakes.
yeah, I mean, shit happens. It is what it is. But I'm not mad at anyone for it. GPI wanted me to send them completely back. They sent me a shipping label and everything. And I didn't want to have to wait for that, so I called ARP, and ARP hooked it up. So GPI is awesome because they sell everything on their website, and in my opinion, have one of the best websites for looking for some of these aftermarket parts. And yeah, I mean they're one of the only companies that sell these pistons and rods too. So I know Texas Speed sells some drop-ins, and we had good luck with the Texas Speed drop-ins for your car.
Yeah, for the SS.
And they were really good until it cracked the block, but that's because the piston was so good the piston didn't break. So it could have been way worse. Stupid shit happens sometimes, and the engine was running so good we didn't bother taking that one apart and checking things over, and kind of bit us because we should have checked the torque on our supercharger bolts, because that's what happened to that one. Is it supercharger bolt backed out of it, dropped down one of the cylinders, and side loaded the piston, ended up cracking the sleeve. Didn't hardly hurt the piston, put a little ding in it, but it was enough to hurt the block.
Side note, always use Loctite on the supercharger bolts.
Yeah. Whoops.
We learned our lesson.
Oh well. Learn from our mistakes. So the story goes on the 6.2 over here. I don't really know what happened there. I know when we took it on race week in June, it was a bone stock 6.2 Denali, stock cam, stock fuel system. Just had an LT4 supercharger bolted to the top of it, and I was running mid 13-second quarter miles with it, and doing burnouts every single time 1320 was around. They're bad influences. But no one else is going to look at my truck any other way unless I did ridiculous burnouts. So anyhow, it started ticking at the end of race week, and we still made it home. We still drove it home, 500 miles, pulling the SS behind it. I mean, loaded down with 5 people in it. It was something. Got home, figured it had killed a DOD lifter, not super uncommon. And when I pulled it apart, I found that it had 6 out of 8 broken pistons. And I'm sure I could find a picture to put in there with it, or even a short video. I took a video of them when I pulled them out. I've got it on Snapchat, but broken. That one's good. Broken. This one's broke. You just can't really see it that well. Broken. Good. So out of 8 pistons, 2 of them are good. I got 6 out of 8 broken pistons, and I had just built a C7, put forged pistons in a C7, and if you don't know, they're the same exact pistons as what's in the truck engines. And so I made a deal with him on his used pistons and rods, threw it back together with a cam, a 220 cam, Gen 5 220 cam. The thing was running awesome. Took it down, put it on the dyno, and for some reason, while it was on the dyno, it decided to spin a main bearing. And so I pulled it apart, and I happened to have a spare crank and some used bearings that were here that looked like brand new. And I put it together, and it ran fine. I actually went and picked up 2 different vehicles the day I got it running. And then the next day I was headed to go pick up another one, and just going down the highway, it spun a bearing again. So my guess is it spun that main bearing again. I probably should have taken the block in and had it line hung, but I kind of risked it just because I really need the truck, and it bit me. So the 6.2 in there is probably still rebuildable, but I'm gonna have to have it line honed and line bored, and I just don't have the time for that. I don't know where you guys are at, but I know where we're at. The machine shops are way backed up. So if I drop this block off, it's gonna be gone for 4 months, and I just don't have we can't have this truck down over the winter. So it's just easier for me to build a 5.3. They're significantly cheaper. I've got a 416 in Kevin, and the 6.2 here can be fixed and built into a 416 to either have as a spare for this truck. Maybe I'll sell this motor off, or I'll just keep the 416 as a spare for my race truck. So we'll see what happens, but at this point, this motor is going to be fine. I'm really kind of excited about this, and we'll see what this little 5.3 can do on 10, 12 pounds with the LT4 supercharger. I'm hoping it'll run like mid to low 12s with a full size crew cab Denali. And I don't plan on, I'd love to lower it, but to be honest with you, I love the fact that it looks like a bone stock grandpa truck, which is why we call it grandpa. So if I lower it and put big wheels up, it's not gonna look like a grandpa truck anymore, so.
Well, all right, and most people don't know who Kevin really is. Why don't you give them a little lowdown on Kevin?
Kevin is, it's worse than the GTO, and there's a reason we call him Kevin. Mostly because he gets left home alone a lot. Kevin is my regular cab. It's 15 Sierra, just like the Denali, same year, same everything. And I bought it off of a guy in Mexico, or in New Mexico, and it was already turbocharged, but man, that thing was a mess when I got it. The turbo kit was already half broken in half. And, big shout out to my friends. They helped me get it, at least put back together so that it made some boost. And then I bet when I got it, it only made 450 horsepower to the tire. It was a joke. It ran like crap. It just was bad. The transmission was smoked. And there was a long time that Holly and I did not appreciate that I had flown down there sight unseen and drove the son of a bitch back. But now it's pretty good now. It's got a built transmission. It's got a built rear end. It's got a killer drive shaft because I've destroyed the drive shaft twice. It's got a 416 cubic inch LT engine. It's got LT4 injectors, LT4 pump, and then it's got a custom spec cam for the turbocharged engine. It's got a billet wheel S480 from VS Racing. And I've even got this new reflex port injection kit on it with my Holley High Ram, where I actually have some 850cc fuel injector clinic injectors to add to the direct injection. So that thing should, if I ever get around to finishing it, it runs. I can drive it around the yard, but it's got no cooling system, so I got to get that finished up and then plumb the cooling system for the turbocharger because it got air to water. And I'm probably only a few days from having it relatively close to being finished, but between Holly's car, which has been pretty well ready to race, and then this thing being broken, and then just us going all over, and me actually working on other customer cars in the meantime, it just hasn't been a priority. So it just sits a lot. So eventually we may get that done. But, you know, it's not really a priority, so don't expect it anytime soon. You know, I've had a lot of fun with this, and to be honest with you, even if the blue truck was ready, I'd probably still take the Denali on race week, because there's just something about having air-conditioned seats while everyone else is suffering. And
Living the true grandpa status in that thing.
like air-conditioned seats, it's got killer air conditioning, and then it rides nice because it's a fucking half-ton truck. So it just works really well for us. And it's got a plug-in, so like I usually bring our tuner as my co-pilot. And he has already confirmed that he is absolutely planning on coming this year again as co-pilot. So it's really handy for him because I got a plug-in right in the dash. If anybody's ever been in one of these trucks, you got a killer interior, a killer stereo. And you know, as much as I love watching all the race weekers suffer their asses off, Jason Hurley, specifically you, I love watching him run sevens, but you know what? I'm not running sevens, even in my race car, so I would rather just have air conditioning. So, you know, that, and if Holly breaks her, you know, her SS, on race week, then I already have permission from Matt last year. I asked him, well, if I'm still racing, can I rent a trailer and haul her from track to track and still finish my race week? And he was like, confused at first. I had to explain it to him because I told him I'm racing my tow rig, and he goes, oh. He goes, yeah, that'd be fucking cool.
Listen, I just want to add that Artemis, the SS, did not break last year. That thing did. All the smoke about the SS breaking, and it didn't.
For the record, it still hauled your shit home, even broken.
I don't care. But
So,
anyways, we'll get back at her again tomorrow. So everybody else, have a good night.